Hello! Today we'll be diving into a tool that is all about getting to the foundation of our clients' inner worlds. In my work with clients as a clinical psychologist, one of the hardest things has always been getting beyond the surface problems and into the deeper patterns that really drive their struggles. You know those very deep-seated, often invisible patterns that drive our most persistent struggles? That's always the million-dollar question for us as clinicians, right? I'm always wondering, how do you actually get down to a client's core beliefs? We all know that way down deep under the surface level problems are these core beliefs or schemas that organize pretty much everything and sometimes trap us in self-perpetuating cycles. But actually getting to these schemas, that can be the real challenge. And for a long time, the tools we've had available to us as clinicians have had some serious limitations. And that's where this tool comes in, the Maladaptive Schema Scale, or MSS for short. In this video, I'll walk you through what makes the MSS a powerful upgrade from older measures, how to interpret its multi-layer report, and most importantly, explore how you can use findings to sharpen your clinical work. So to really get why the MSS is such a big deal, it helps to compare it with the schema tool most of us know, the Young Schema Questionnaire, or YSQ. The MSS makes some critical improvements. First, it expands the scope from 18 to 27 maladaptive schemas, so you get a much more complete picture. But here's the really great part, it does that while being less than half the length and will dynamically adjust the length, only asking questions most relevant to the individual client. Also, the psychometrics are way more robust. It was developed using rash analysis, the gold standard for creating these kinds of scales. That means that questions were carefully designed and calibrated to measure a specific level of a schema. Finally, and maybe the best part, it is an open source measure, which means no barrier to access for clinicians or researchers. The MSS is really a synthesis of decades of research. It's not just a tweak of the old stuff. It was developed by integrating attachment theory, the latest trauma research, and a ton of new empirical findings. Here's a list of all the schemas on screen. Some familiar ones like abandonment and mistrust, but some new ones too, like avoidant attachment and lack of coherent identity. I won't go through them now, but do pause to look at all the schemas, or you can find comprehensive resources for each schema published. Let's make this real with an example of a new schema included in the MSS, the over-reliance on emotions schema. This is basically the core belief behind emotional reasoning, the classic "if I feel it, it must be true" thinking. People characterized by this schema often believe that their feelings are the most accurate indicators of truth, leading them to ignore evidence to the contrary. This is something, as clinicians, we see constantly in CBT and DBT, and now we finally have a schema that directly measures this tendency. That's a big clinical step forward. Now, let's talk about interpreting the MSS report, because having all this precise data is great, but the real magic happens when we turn it into a meaningful conversation with our clients. Let's take a look at how the report is set up to help us do exactly that. The very first thing you will see in the report is the schema summary. The bar chart instantly flags the most significant patterns. You will see some schemas marked as strong, which means the client scored in the top 10% as compared to a clinical sample. So right away, you can spot where a client's core struggles may be, say dependence, enmeshment, or unrelenting standards. That's a really practical starting point for treatment. But the MSS goes so much deeper than just a single score. It gives you data in 4 distinct layers. So you've got the average score of each schema. Then there is the percent in agreement, which tells you how consistently the client was on board with the schema for that. And then this is where it gets really powerful. It organizes all these schemas into 2 big conceptual models, one based on childhood unmet needs and the other on schema-focus categories. And this part is just so useful for case conceptualization. When I think back to clients I've seen over the years, I can remember so many times when I was trying to piece together not just what was happening, but where it all came from. That's exactly where a measure like this is invaluable. High scores on an unmet needs cluster suggest the cause of the schema is rooted in early childhood experiences. Even better, the needs clusters group schemas on where they likely came from, their developmental roots. For instance, I've worked with clients who carried deep mistrust and instability into adulthood. If I'd had a tool like this, it might have highlighted elevations in the safety and attachment cluster, pointing me more directly towards early needs for safety, stability, and care that weren't considered consistently met. The focus categories, on the other hand, show us how these schemas play out in daily life. They organize schemas into patterns of how we relate to ourselves and to others. In my own work, I've seen clients who feared rejection but also struggled to trust others, insisting on handling everything on their own. If I'd been able to see high scores on abandonment and excessive self-reliance, both within the relationships focus category, it would have given me a clearer, structured way to capture and explain those patterns. This framework is what helps us shift the conversation from simply what is happening with a client to why it might be happening, as well as how these schemas are playing out now. It connects all the dots. All right, let's bring it all back into the therapy room. Using the MSS is both practical and intuitive in everyday clinical work. Step 1, assess your client with the MSS. For example, you can send them a link to the MSS to complete at home through NovoPsych. Step 2, identify elevations and patterns in the multi-layer report. Step 3, explore the schemas with your client using the detailed descriptions to build a shared understanding of their origin and current impact. And then finally, step 4, plan targeted interventions. Step by step, the MSS takes you from insight to intervention. And this brings me to a really key takeaway. Because the MSS taps into core beliefs, its insights are valuable for case conceptualization no matter what therapeutic modality you are using as a therapist. CBT, psychodynamic, ACT, you name it. It's a truly transdiagnostic tool that can deepen your understanding of literally any client. So let's just do a quick recap. The Maladaptive Schema Scale is a valid and reliable way for clinicians to assess maladaptive schemas. It's more comprehensive, much shorter, and built on a much stronger psychometric foundation than past measures. And because it's open source and available on NovoPsych, it's powerful and accessible as a resource for all of us in the clinical community. So I will leave you with this to think about. We all have those cases where progress feels slow, challenges feel layered, or patterns just aren't fully clear yet. What new doors could this measure open? What hidden patterns could a tool this modern and precise help you and your clients uncover and maybe even begin to shift together? Of course, there's a full manual available for the MSS on the NovoPsych website. So to learn more, give that a read. Or the other great way to learn about the scale is just to self-administer it. You might learn something about yourself too.